This is part two of study of the book of Joshua. We went through the first chapter on last Wednesday and learned a lot of good things there. I'll comment on just a few of them in a moment, but tonight I'm going to try desperately to go over the letter that I was sent regarding fellowship with me and us on eminency. I tried the past two Sunday nights, and we had a delegation from a Baptist church or west of town here to be here that night. They had such a good time, they came back and brought their friends. But I learned that their pastor was out of town and so forth. And so I figured, well, phooey, now if they're going to come back here the next Sunday after what I taught the first Sunday night, they come back here, I'm going to really let them know what we are. And the fact is, you know, when I said we're Acts 9 and we don't follow the Great Commission and so forth, yet afterwards they said, well, we really enjoyed that. Well, okay. But I don't look for them to be back tonight, though I wish they would reconsider their position and be with us. It probably is not going to happen, but we can pray that way. They have been very interested. I have stacked them up with books and tracts on our message, and they still keep coming, and they're still our friends, claim us anyway, I guess because of the Canton Inn connection. Oh, that sounds sinister, the Canton Inn connection. But I saw them there this past week. No, well, I did. But hopefully we can get to talk with them further. But tonight, that's what we'll do, because I really need to get an answer back to this guy, and I want congregational input as to just exactly what to say, because after all, your association with me means, and that's what he wrote in the letter, I do not want my name or the name of the Berean Bible Institute associated with you in any way. And you're writing, well, we're going to have to respond to that. And that's more or less why I brought the study that I did yesterday, simply because one of Dave's young men is going to go to the Berean Bible Institute. And he's going to have to know that regarding that subject, not everybody agrees. And the point is, if you can just get one documented case of non-eminency, prophetic fulfillment, then their whole theory of eminency is thrown out the window. It is not an imminent return. Certain things have to happen first, and they can be documented, they are observable, and so forth. And that's why I was glad his first statements were, I believe that we're going to see in the coming days toward the rapture sufferings of the body of Christ. Well, as soon as you say, I'm going to see, you do away with signlessness. And we have said those sorts of things for years, and to me, my brain goes boing, you know, this is not right. We can't see signs, but we're going to see this happen. We can't know, and yet these things characterize the last days. And I scratch my head and say, okay, just tell me which is it, you know, that's just make it simple for me. And so that's why I did. But we're going to discuss that tonight, God willing, because both times beforehand, I thought it was his will for us to do it, and he certainly changed our minds. But in Joshua chapter 1, we learned quite a few things. Moses has died. Moses represents the law. And a new leader is going to arrive on the scene to bring the people in the land. Now, of course, the fantastic symbolism here is that the law could not do certain things. It's weak in that it demands of the flesh, and the flesh cannot produce. That's the way it is. And so Israel, under the leadership of Moses, the motorship of leader. Well, boy, I need to put all my bifocals in my brain there, Brian. Wonder what I can do. Under the leadership of Moses, could not go in the land. They wasted in the wilderness 40 years until a new generation came and a new leader. That leader was Joshua, whose name really is Jesus. Jesus derives his name from Joshua. It means Jehovah, our deliverer, or our Savior. And so Joshua had the mantle passed to him. Of course, it has to do with the two covenants, the old covenant and the new. The old under Moses, temporary, effective for the time being, but had some limitations. And the new covenant under Christ. It's the new covenant that's going to bring the kingdom to Israel and give it to them as a permanent possession, not the old. And so we see the fact that Israel could not enter the land under Moses, but here comes this new leader, Joshua, and into the land they're going to go. But it's going to be a struggle, and there is another comparison here for us. Though Canaan land is not the heavenly places, there's very definitely a similarity. Israel had to fight their way into the heavenly places. Guess what? If you want a throne and a dominion in the heavenly places in eternity future, you have to do your fighting. The thing is, they had to do it, in a sense, literally and physically to get their land. We do ours in a spiritual battle to get our land because the dimension is different, the sphere is different, and the like. So they had to fight people. We have to fight fallen angels. The people claimed the land, the angels claimed these heavenly places. But a fight must ensue. So we must follow our leader Joshua into the land, as it were, in the symbolism. But here's what happened first. Verse 1. Joshua the son of Nun. And you'll recall he is referred to this several times in the book of Joshua. And it means the son of the clean fish, more or less. And just as the fish has a fin on it, which is a triangle, symbolizing Elohim, the plurality in the Godhead, as guidance mechanisms, then Joshua is guided by God. Who was it that told Moses, lay your hand on Joshua, identify with him, and transfer your honor to him, some of your honor? It was God. So Joshua is to be guided by God here. Not only that, the clean fish had scales on it, which is a derivative of the Hebrew word righteousness. So Joshua was the one guided by God and clothed in righteousness, symbolized by the scales on the clean fish. So he sent out of Shittim 2 men to spy secretly. Now, a couple things here regarding this by way of contrast. How many spies were sent out originally to go into the land? Well, remember the first time they left Egypt, they came through Kadesh Barnea, right up the wilderness. It only took them really a relatively short time. They had about a year's layover there in building the temple, a tabernacle rather, and getting the law. And they came to a place called Kadesh Barnea. And 12 spies. 12 men went to spy in Canaan, 10 were bad and 2 were good. You remember that song we used to do? 12 spies. 10 of them were bad, and they came back with a bad report. They said, and here's our study on the Nephilim and Rephaim, the sons of Anak are there. They're giants in the land. We're afraid because we're grasshoppers in their sight. And Joshua and Caleb said, wait one second. The Lord's for us. We can take them. They're nothing but big bullies anyway. We can conquer the land. The children of Israel followed the advice of the 10 spies, and their bodies were strewn in the wilderness over a course of about 38 years or so. But now Joshua and Caleb are still alive to do what? Take the people in the land as they originally reported. We can do this. But it's now reduced from the 12 spies to 2 spies. And there's an interesting correlation here between the 2 going in to spy secretly and the 2 in the future to come who will be open witnesses. The 2 witnesses for Israel to do what? Take the land, enter the land, claim their kingdom, claim their possessions, and so forth. And those are the 2 witnesses, Moses and Elijah. But in this case, they're sent to spy secretly. And remember, we had a study a long time ago where my first remarks were, I do not believe in situation ethics. However, there are circumstances when it's okay to tell white lies. You know, people are about to have the big one. Pastors advocating lying. And wait one second. Do you suppose that these spies came in there and announced, hey, we're Israelites, came right through the gates of Jericho and said, hey, we're Israelites and we're about to conquer you. Give me all of the detailed information on Jericho, its battlements and so forth. No, they went secretly. They pretended to be somebody else. And in that particular case, only that case, is it legitimate to represent yourself as somebody that you are not. And for example, if we lived in Nazi Germany and we were hiding our children and our spouses and our family somewhere on the grounds and the soldiers came and said, tell us where they are, I would say, well, now, I sent them clear. They're on the East Coast someplace. Go up there and find them. Would I? Yeah, well, they'd kill me anyway, but the point is, would I be telling them the truth? No, I would not. Would I care? No. Would God care? No. You see, normally you're not allowed to pick up a rifle and shoot somebody down and kill them. But in wartime, the more people you kill, the better it is if you're a believer. You don't have to fool with them when they're dead, except you just remove them, bury them, and move on. The more that you kill, the better it is. And if for any who doubt that, I would just simply say to you, look at the example number 1 of David. Saul killed his thousands, but David his what? Tens of thousands. And he was hailed as a spiritual leader because he was able to kill more. And when Jesus Christ comes back, he kills more people in the Battle of Armageddon than's ever been killed before, you see, in that one fell swoop of warfare. And he's King of Kings, Lord of Lords, and he does that. Why? Because there are just some people that you're never going to reform, they're never going to change, and sometimes you just have to get rid of them in the warfare sense. Now, I realize I've just opened a can of worms. Well, the pastor just given me some thoughts here. Yeah, I'm talking about in the warfare sense only. So they're sent to spy secretly. And Joshua said, go view the land, even Jericho. And they went and came to a harlot's house named Rahab and lodged there. Note too the contrast between this and the Apostle Paul. Let me just quote it here, where he says that our warfare is not carnal, but spiritual, to the pulling down of strongholds or fortifications. Now, the mightiest, greatest fortification in the land of Canaan was Jericho. God led them not to the weakest city first, but to the strongest city first. And so if they can't take Jericho, you just might as well forget it. They're not going to take the land anyway. So you start at the strongest position. And so here is a fortification, a walled city. And it's just like what Paul is saying. We too face these fortifications. And if we're ever going to get that land, the walls have to come tumbling down. Okay? We've already sung once, so I'll not grace you with Joshua at the Battle of Jericho. But we could, because that's the principle. As his walls came tumbling down, our walls must come tumbling down. And we must pull down the walls of the strongholds if we're ever going to get the land. All right. So go view the land, even Jericho. And they went, of all places, these orthodox, clean, sanctified, sanctimonious Jews came to a harlot's house. Now, believe it or not, this is something that is of great teaching in the grace of God. Even though we're under law, and we mentioned this on Wednesday night, there is grace under the dispensation of law. You have law, the old covenant, and then you have grace in the new covenant. Now, the difference with us is ours is abundant grace. Ours is a third category of grace. It exceeds the new covenant grace Israel had. So you go from the law, which people were saved under law, that's a measure of grace, to something that is even more gracious than the law, and that's the new covenant, and something even more gracious than the new covenant to Israel, and that's God's grace gift to us in this dispensation. We're in that third category. However, anytime you see God dealing with what we would consider the offscouring of the universe, we're talking grace here. Now, here are all these Jews, and they were sanctified, but where do they go for hiding? Where are they least to be least conspicuous? Where do all of these men go whenever they're strange men? They've been out in the wilderness for a long time. They go to a harlot's house. They're going to be least conspicuous there because there are a lot of other men there. And this is where she was. So that's exactly where they went. They didn't want to be conspicuous. Now, they were not there to secure her services, to be sure, but they were there. Now, the thing is, to me, sometimes it's a little hypocritical to talk down on one hand this offscouring, this prostitute and so forth, but now they're going to use her. But it's going to be to their benefit because we're going to see something that is really tremendous here. What is that? Rahab the harlot, the doubly cursed Canaanite, child of Ham, is going to get saved. And not only is she going to get saved, she's going to be one of two women in the lineage of Jesus Christ who should not be there. The other one is Ruth the Moabitess, who was also doubly cursed. And she gets saved because of a tremendous act of faith in household salvation. All right, to a harlot's house named Rahab, and they lodged there. And it was told the king of Jericho, behold, there came in hither at night children of Israel to search out the land. Of course, these Jews, having conspicuous characteristics, could not hide them indefinitely. The king went to Rahab, bring forth the men that are come to thee. We're told they're come to search out the country. And the woman took the two men and hid them, and said thus, well, there were men that came to me, but I knew not whence they were. And it came about the time of the shutting of the gate. When it was dark, the men went out. Whither the men went out, I don't know, but pursue after them quickly, and you will overtake them. Now, shall I refresh your memories again? This was not the truth. She did not tell the king the truth. But in actuality, her not telling the truth was an act of faith. Just hold your place here with me. And if somebody misunderstands this and says, well, pastor teaches it's okay to lie in certain, I am not doing that. But in these cases, Hebrews chapter 11, where the circumstances are different, had she not lied, she would have went to hell. Because she lied, she went to heaven, or she'll be in the future kingdom. And I'll do a little explanation here. Verse 30. By faith the walls of Jericho fell down after they were compassed about 7 days. Verse number 31. By faith the harlot Rahab perished not with them that believed not, when she had received the spies with peace. This is Hebrews 11:31. The act of her sending the king's soldiers another way was an act of faith. And it's just like using a knife, a bayonet, an entrapment, poison the water supplies, a bow and arrow, a gun, whatever, a bomb, in killing the enemy. When you are at war, and she now considered herself at war with her own people, and I'll show you how we know that. She said, okay, I want to take your part, and here's how I'm going to show you my faith. That is, I'm going to send them out another way and hide you. Now, that's interesting as we come to Joshua 2 again. Where it was that she hid them. Verse 6. She brought them up to the roof of the house and hid them in the stalks of flax, which she had laid in order upon the roof. Now, significance. A Gentile is about to be saved. And there's a parallel here. Gentiles are about to be saved in the book of Acts. And the Apostle Peter is in the house of Simon the tanner. And it's just a little prior to lunchtime, and he gets hungry, but he wants to do a little prayer and meditation first. And where does he go? Rooftop. Remember the vision? He was up on the roof of Simon. And see the parallel? Gentiles are about to get saved. God is going to save in an unusual way the Gentiles. Now, be mindful, the significance of Peter's vision was different than what she was doing, but in the end, the result is Gentiles are saved. And so where did the Jews end up? Well, Peter ended up on a rooftop, and these Jews ended up on a rooftop, and end result, Gentiles got saved. And this Gentile's about to get saved, or in what she's doing. And the men pursued after them the way of Jordan unto the fords. And as soon as they which were pursued after them were gone out, they shut the gate. Before they were laid down, she came up to them on the roof. Now, in the other case, Peter was sent to Cornelius. We're back in Joshua 2:7. Peter was sent to Cornelius, but in this case, the Jew came to the Gentiles. What's the difference? Well, because the gospel is being sent to the Gentiles in Peter's illustration, so Peter went to the Gentiles. But in this case, the Gentile went to the Jew. Because we've got different things that are being signified here. So Peter sees this vision on the rooftop, and he's sent to the Gentile. But here are these two Jews who have the gospel vouchsafed in them, and the Jew comes up to them and says, okay, now look what I've done. I want to be saved, me and my family. So before they were laid down, I came up to them on the roof. She said, and this is fantastic, I know the Lord has given you the land, and that your terror has fallen upon us, and all the inhabitants of the land faint because of you. We've heard how the Lord dried up the water of the Red Sea. Now, mind you, when did this happen? How many years ago did this happen? 40 years. They came out, 40 years wandering in the wilderness. Now they're entering the land, and now what does this tell us? This lady was probably a lady of the evening, simply because, in this case, a girl had to do what she had to do to survive. But she was not dumb. She was not selling herself just to be doing that. She learned lessons from history. What do people say usually? The lesson of history is that we never learn anything from history. This gal learned something 40 years, or at least heard the account 40 years prior. She probably was not 40 years of age, but she's learned something here. And that was that God was with Israel, and that he did something to the kings of the Amorites, Sihon and Og. And we learned too that those guys were giants. He's the guy that had the big bed frame and 6 fingers and 6 toes and so forth. As soon as we heard these things, our hearts did melt. Neither did there remain any courage in us. For the Lord your God, he is God in heaven and in earth beneath. This is an expression of faith. I am not believing the multitude of deities that my own people embrace. I am believing in the one God of Israel. Now here is a Gentile who is about to bless the Jews. She's already blessed them in protecting them. These guys wouldn't have lasted 10 minutes had the men of the king of Jericho gotten them, and he would have killed them, of course, as spies. But she's already showed them a favor. And what is the blessing clause of the Abrahamic covenant? Blessed are they that bless you. And this Gentile who doesn't deserve a thing is about to be blessed with salvation, her own deliverance physically from Israel's wrath that's about to fall, of physical death, and that of her family. So let's move on. I pray you swear unto me by the Lord, verse 12, since I've showed you kindness, that you'll show me kindness. And even though she did not know the blessing of the Abrahamic covenant, she knew the principle behind it, that God is with Israel, and if you take a side with Israel, you're going to be blessed as well. So, here's what she said. I want a true token. Last part of verse 12. Now, this is really important. And once you see it, it becomes an absolute blessing, absolutely fantastic, at least to me. Give me a true token. I want a token of your pledge that I will be safe in my family. that you will save alive my father, my mother, my brethren, my sisters, and all that they have, and deliver our lives from death. Now, just a by the by here. We're under the dispensation of law. Under the dispensation of law, we have a concept called household salvation. Now, the Jews 40 years earlier had men to come, take a lamb, kill it, and apply it on their houses, and anybody in the house under the blood was going to be saved. Household salvation. You could, if you went out, well, your blood was on your own head. But as long as you were under the blood applied to the Passover lamb, you were safe. And every man was to bring his family in there under the blood. Now, what's the difference here? Well, she is a Canaanite, and she is a woman, and she's had many, many men. That's how she made her living. She had no man spiritual to represent her. So she goes beyond and past in her representation here of household salvation of the blood of the Lamb for Israel all the way back to the seed of the woman, you see. Because it's going to be of her seed that Messiah is going to come. He not only is going to have Gentile blood in him through Noah and then Shem, but he now is going to have Gentile blood in him in that you have Rahab becoming one of his great-grandmothers. And so the blood of the Canaanites, the doubly cursed people through Ham, are represented at the cross. And then Ruth the Moabitess, because of the incestuous relationship there, they were outcast. And Ruth is mentioned there. She is the great-grandmother of David, and so forth. And so she's standing up for her household, our possessions and our persons. I'm asking that you be saved. All right? The man answered, our life is yours. If ye utter not this our business, it shall be when the Lord has given us the land, we'll deal kindly and truly with you. So she let them down by a cord through the window. For her house was upon the town wall, and she dwelt upon the wall. I take this to be a symbolism here in actuality of the fact that even though she had this lowly profession, that there was something in her that disdained that part of it, but she was merely trying to get by temporarily until she could better herself. And the dwelling on the wall means that she had higher standards in a way. She disdained that lifestyle, and she wanted something better, and she was above the commoners. And of course, it proved true. Who was one out of all those in Jericho that did believe? Who was the one who really believed? And of course, it was this harlot with her family. They believed. They were different. They wanted something better. And they hit the bottom of the barrel, and they were looking up. And she indeed did. That's what, time and again, Jesus would compare the Pharisees and the harlots. And he would say, the harlots go into the kingdom of God before you do, because you think you haven't sinned, and they know what they are, and they make no pretense. And when salvation's offered, they get saved, and when salvation's offered you think you're self-righteous. You're too good to accept what I'm going to offer you. And so he always contrasts. Boy, just think of that contrast. Putting a Pharisee and a harlot on the scales together and saying, they're better than you are. Well, that's the case here. They were better. Now, again, I am not, of course, sanctioning that lifestyle in any way. I'm just saying what circumstances are here and what can happen. So, she told them, get to the mountain. I've sent them to the fords of Jericho, the fords of Jordan. Go to the mountain, wait till they come back. When they come back, then you can go your way. They said, we'll be blameless of this thine oath which you have made us swear. Behold, when we come into the land, thou shalt, in other words, if you tell them, we will be blameless. But when we come into the land, you shall bind this line of scarlet thread, the very rope she used to lower the Jews down, in the window that you didst let us down by. And you shall bring your father, your mother, your brethren, and all thy father's household home unto thee. It shall be that whosoever shall go out of the doors of the house to the street, his blood is on his own head, will be guiltless. But whosoever shall be with thee in the house, this blood shall be on our head, if any hand be upon him. Now again, the contrast between Israel, the Jews, and this Canaanite woman. They had the blood on the doorpost, literal blood, that was promised and given to the nation of Israel. God had done what to the Gentiles? Given them up. They had nothing with regard to the Jews, except God wanted to save them. Now you'll note that he did not put literal blood on the doorpost, but he gave them a token of the blood, a connection from the blood to the Gentiles in the window. Gentiles indeed are on the outside looking in, and it's not like the door, it is a window, and it's not like the blood, but it's a token of the blood. And it is a direct connection between the blood that was promised to Israel, that's their salvation, to this Gentile. And what did she do? She immediately she let them down, she rolled it back up, and she put that thing in the window. Why? Because it's a token of the promise of her salvation. She wasn't promised the blood. She shouldn't have gotten the blood, but she believed in Israel's God. And so there is a line, a direct line from Israel's blood to her house, which promised her as a Gentile that she too could be saved if she would believe in Israel's God. Now, I don't know about you, but that's shouting grounds to me when I see that type of grace extended here in this book. So here's the way it goes. It says, verse 20, if you utter this our business, we will be quit, under no obligation of thine, which you've made us swear. And here's where she gets saved. According to your words, so be it. She sent them the way, and they departed and bound the scarlet line in the window. An act of faith, saying, it wasn't meant for me directly, but there is this direct line which connects me to the blood of the Lamb. It wasn't meant for me directly, but there is a direct line between the blessings of Israel and the blessing of this Gentile. And though I'm a Gentile dog, I still can get the crumbs from the table. I still can be associated with the blood of the Lamb that forgives. So, verse number 22. And they went, came to the mountain, abode there 3 days, till the pursuers were returned. Pursuers sought them throughout all the way, but found them not. And the two men returned, descended from the mountain, passed over, and came to Joshua the son of Nun, and told him all that befell them. And now, what is the report? The report is this. Truly the Lord has delivered into our hands all the land, for even all the inhabitants of the country do faint because of us. Now, where did they learn that? From Rahab. Rahab was the one who was telling them. Now, you talk about the need for information for warfare. We've got men who were in the armed services. You just don't go, excuse the phrase, busting into the territory. The first thing you do is gather recon. You have to know where you're going. You have to know how strong the enemy is. You have to know their psychological profile. At least, are these guys hyped up? Are they souped up? Are they ready to go? Or in this case, look, guys, our guys are afraid of you. We have heard all these things. We have known them to be factual, and we are absolutely afraid. And that's all the spies needed to know. That the men of Jericho were ill prepared psychologically for the warfare that was about to happen. Now, we're going to start here with chapter 3 because we have a few minutes left, but we'll just comment on a few verses and go on. You see, some things have to happen before the walls of Jericho are going to come tumbling down. So Joshua rose early in the morning, and they removed from Shittim and came to Jordan, he and all the children of Israel, and lodged there before they passed over. And it came to pass after 3 days that the officers went through the host. They commanded the people, saying, when you see the covenant, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, the priests, the Levites bearing it, then you're going to remove from your place and go after it. They were to keep a certain distance from it, and verse number 5 says they were to sanctify themselves, for tomorrow God was going to do wonders. Take up the Ark of the Covenant, pass over before the people. They took up the Ark and they passed over. Verse 7, Joshua began to get the promises here. God told him, I'm going to be with you as I was with Moses. Now, just stay with me a couple verses, couple comments, we're through. You'll command the priests that bear the ark, when they come to the brink of the water of the Jordan, they shall stand still in Jordan. Joshua said to the children of Israel, come hither and hear the words of the Lord. Now, this is what is about to happen. Verse number 13. I'm skipping, we'll come back later. As soon as it come to pass that the soles of the feet of the priests that bear the ark of the covenant shall rest in the waters of Jordan, that the waters of Jordan shall be cut off from the waters that come down from above, and they shall be a heap. Now, here's just a couple of comments and insights, and we're done. This is not the first time that Israel is about to pass through the water. The first time is in Egypt. They come up out of Egypt under the banner of the blood of the Lamb. And the blood of the Passover lamb authorized Moses to have power with God, power even over nature, as was seen in the plagues in Egypt. And they came to the brink of the Red Sea, and he raised up the rod of the Lord, and the Red Sea parted, and they passed over under the blood of the Lamb. Now, more or less, this was a group of families knit together as one family, because they were all Jews, that were headed toward the Promised Land. They were operating under one application of the blood, individual salvation and a collective application out to the Promised Land. But it took another application of the blood for them to get into the Promised Land. And that was not the blood of the Lamb on the doorpost, but the blood applied to the mercy seat on the Ark of the Covenant. Now, how many times a year was the blood applied to the mercy seat? Only one. On Israel's national, not their individual, that's Passover, on Israel's national Day of Atonement. So it wasn't the blood of the Lamb on the doorpost anymore that was going to bring them into the land. It was the blood nationally applied. It was the atonement that Israel got collectively, as not just a family, but a nation that would bring them in to make them that one nation under God. And so we now have the instrument of the Ark of the Covenant where the blood was applied, the blood that indicated the forgiveness of sins collectively for Israel. And as we'll see, the feet of the priest no sooner bring that ark into the Jordan River than the waters begin to back up. Now, what's significant about this? Well, the spring of the year, remember, you have the rains coming, and Jordan has overflowed its banks. And the waters immediately stop. And for the second time in their history, they pass over through dry ground. Now, remember, bodies of water indicate the Gentiles. And they come through it in the Red Sea, and they come through it in the Jordan River, and both times Gentiles are going to be judged because of it, and they come through dry.